So, Michelle, we've had a couple of interactions, albeit some really good interactions, and I'm super excited about what we're going to be doing together.
Yeah.
And I thought, maybe it's a good time to tell your story.
So I grew up on a farm in the middle of the Free State in a little town called Tweespruit. It's in the middle of absolutely nowhere. If you try and Google it, or shall I say if you blink, you will drive past it. But what was very interesting to me from a pork perspective was that we had a little pig on the farm called Piggy. And Piggy was essentially my dog. And Piggy used to run around and walk around after me and follow me on the farm. And he was my friend because both my sister and my brother had gone to boarding school, and I had a little friend called Piggy. And then we decided that Piggy was getting a little bit bigger, so we sent Piggy back to the sties, and every night Piggy would jump over and come to the door and literally snap, and Piggy got to sleep on my bed until eventually Piggy went away and got made into bacon. But anyway, that's an aside story. So as I say, I grew up on a farm in the middle of the Free State. I could speak Sotho before I could speak English, which was very frustrating for my mother because she is not fluent in Sotho, but my dad was. So I would speak to my mother via my dad. So I think I developed at a very young age an understanding of the African culture, an understanding of way of doing things. I then went to boarding school, so lost a bit of that connection. But it was interesting when I sort of came back and I finished my studies at the University of Natal, and I'd done public relations, marketing and advertising. And my first job was as a public relations officer for the Natal Parks Board. But as anybody knows who's worked in conservation before, a salary of 381 Rand and 12 cents every month was really not going to sit well with me. So I did my time there, and I absolutely loved what I did. And then I worked for Sol Kersner & Son International for 5 years, and that was an eye-opener of note. And after many tears and many frustrations around the gambling industry, even back in that day, I walked in, handed my resignation in, and I walked out. And that was the end of corporate South Africa, if you want to put it that way. I then I went for an interview with Mike Boone, Kingsley Holgate, Barry Leach, and I got a job at a company called Group Africa, whose primary focus was really in the informal market. Now, back in the day, we would have these massive roadshow rigs, and we would go around to all these rural towns, and we would do these 45-minute shows per brand, and you would get 10,000, 15,000 people attending. And essentially, in a way, it was brand washing, but we were educating through edutainment at the time. Lo and behold, so after a couple of years with Group Africa, my husband was a pilot, and off he went to China to fly for Cathay Pacific, and I decided, well, let's go with. Okay, we got married in a very short space of time, and off we went. And essentially, I started a company called Group Asia, which was very similar to Group Africa, but really talking to the mass market, the main market. And I think one of the key differences between Africa and Asia, well, we'll talk about the pork in a minute, is the fact that in South Africa, the retention levels might be slightly lower, but the actual joy and the energy and the vibrancy of the South African culture just shines through. Whereas in Asia, you've got 12,000 people standing there military style looking at you with shall I say, limited personality, but the retention levels were 100%. So that was quite an adaptation for me. After my daughter was born, we came back to South Africa, and then I started working with Gigi Alcock. And Gigi's written a couple of books. Casinomics Unleashed is the latest book that he has written. And together we built up this Minanawe empire. Minanawe is a Zulu word for you and I. And really did some groundbreaking stuff like the Soweto Beach Party, where we built a beach in Soweto. Everybody arrived in their bikinis, and we had 24 hours of music. And we launched brands like the Pamela cheese slice, which really the brief from the client was, we want to put cheese slices into this market. Why do we put it into kids' lunchboxes? The bottom line is, if you've looked at a kid's lunchbox in the township environment, it's a scuffed in, so it's last night's leftovers, or it's maybe 2 slices of brown bread and a bit of polony on the inside. And the reality is this was never going to work. So we said to them, there's this thing called a quarter. Okay, it's a quarter loaf of bread. You take the bread out, you then put all of your dressings at the bottom, you put some slap chips on the top, you then put some more atchar, maybe some more dressing, and then on top of that you're going to be putting polony, fried polony, all fried, as endorsed by the Heart Foundation. So all fried, so you've got polony, then you've maybe got your egg, and on top of that we essentially put the cheese slice. Now this is an 80 billion rand industry, this the Kasi Course outlet, and essentially it was a case of just getting people to first adopt it, then the usability of it on an ongoing basis. And over 14 years, we developed this into the giant that it is today. There are 120 billion slices that are sold in the township environment every single month.
Say that number again.
120 billion cheese slices. So
insane.
I think what's key in this market, and there's a loyalty that has stemmed as a result of that as well. What is key for this market is, what you've got to do is you've got to find a gap, and you've really got to take that gap of existing occasions that actually are part of the township environment. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. As I say time and time again, there's nothing informal about the informal economy, which is worth about R1 trillion in the South African sector. But anyway, to go back to my story, I digress. I came back from Hong Kong, and Gigi Alcock approached me. And as I said, we started with Minanawe, and then at a point there was a merger and acquisition with various of the big companies, and we were bought out by the French, which ultimately left Gigi resigning, and he just wanted to do his own thing. But I was still convinced that I could teach the French the South African culture and the township economy. Anyway, needless to say that didn't really work out very well. So I moved on, and with the intention of actually taking it a little easier, but then clients started calling, and it was really heart rendering for me, and the fact that the clients were following the person, they weren't actually following the business, and they were following the 35 years of insights that we brought into this environment. I paid my school fees, I understand this environment, I'm passionate about this market, and for me it's about business enablement. It's not about just going in and putting your product in and expecting it to levitate from the shelves. It's about how do we create a genuine, authentic partnership that is going to resonate with the pain points of that particular owner or outlet owner or whomever you're dealing with. And how do you build and partner something that is authentic and grow that partnership, and at the same time grow your brand? Because that's where you're going to go far beyond the loyalty. You're actually going to get the stickiness that you're looking for, which is, in my opinion, always one step further than loyalty. So we opened up the business AmaKonekXin, and it's all really based on the premise of, I have a connection who has a connection who has a connection. And that is how the township economy works. It is all about networking. It's about being connected, and more importantly for you guys, about connecting the Sapo brand to the people. Well, not really the brand, about connecting pork with the people. And that is how AmaKonekXin can actually assist you. It's about connecting pork with the people.
I'd like to get a better understanding also of what is it that you do, and what makes you get up out of bed every day to do this? Like, what's the exciting part? You said you're passionate, but what is it about this industry, working in the township economy, that really fuels your energy?
Okay, so a little bit more about what we do, and then I'll get on to why I get out of bed in the morning. So we've really got 5 pillars within the business, and one of the key pillars within that business is really about market insights. It's about really understanding your consumer. I like to spend at least one day, ideally 2 days in the township every week. Doesn't always happen, but it's about understanding, as I said previously, what are the pain points, what are the passion points, understanding the Kasi ingenuity, understanding the economics, what drives the individual, where are their pain points, how can you partner. So that's really the insights division that we've got. And then we've also got the pillar which talks really about route to market, your go-to-market strategy. Over the years, we've unpacked this massive giant called a MIDI wholesaler in the informal sector as well. So it's about looking at strategies, and then how do we amplify the strategies that we've got as well. And we like to use a lot of community radio. And the reason behind that is because it's targeted, it's centralized, and it's really about getting that message to the people that you're talking to within that ecosystem, as opposed to these national radio stations where there's a lot of wastage around that. So it allows you to be very tactical in your approach in terms of how you're actually marketing your brand. Then we've got out of home, so we do a lot of wall murals. Why do we do wall murals? Because we want your brand to be out there, because visibility drives credibility. But more importantly, and this gets to where my passion is, it's we are using people from the township, from the Kasi economy, and we're feeding back into that system. So there's a very circular economy that we drive. We only use local people who are familiar with the environment that they're working in as well. And we like to always give back. And I think for me, importantly, it really is that business enablement or that reciprocity about how do I assist, and then how did they become loyal to the brand. And it really is it's a two-way street. I think a lot of brands make the mistake of arriving in this environment and they think they can just take over. There's certain formal retail giants that have tried it and have failed, because you can't lose the essence of who, of what the Kasi is, what drives that township economy. So what gets me out of bed in the morning? It's when I see that I've changed someone's life. And it's not just about my staff. My staff are key to me. I'm very passionate about developing the staff. I'm very passionate about making sure that the guys that I've got, the guys and girls that I've got on board, that push themselves, because they are the next generation of AmaKonekXin. And I think for me that is critical. They know it and they understand that. But it's really about, they're in the township every day. And I go in and I often look at things through different lenses. So you've got to teach your guys on the ground to take a step back and look at the township, which is really part of their day-to-day ecosystem, and look at it differently, look at it from a marketing point of view. So it's people are one of my core passions. But if you had to ask me why I get out of bed in the morning, it's ultimately to be able to see how I've helped to grow a business. And it's not on paper. It's not pie in the sky. It's practical. It's looking at how we've practically grown businesses from literally zero to hero, and how we've made a difference to people's lives in the township economy. And I don't get out of bed in the morning with a spring. I get out of bed with a leap and a bound, because it really is. That's what drives me is the ability to change. And it's not about changing lives. It's about changing the interaction that we've got. We're very fortunate in that we interact with a lot of brands. But how do those brands who've got the money to invest in the township make tangible differences, as opposed to just being lip service?
So let's move on to pork. We've had a couple of meetings.
All things pork.
We've had a few briefing sessions.
Yeah.
We've had some good conversations around it. What is your take on pork, and what makes you so excited about working with SAPO?
So I think my love for pork, let's just go back a step. After I got over the trauma of Piggy, my childhood companion, my love of pork was really cemented when I was in Asia. And the incredible ways that, look, Asia, I mean, the food source there, everything gets used. And I think for me, and that was really cemented, different ways and tastes and flavors and sensations and those kind of things around pork, because you've got the pork buns and you've got the steamed buns and all of that. But for me, working with SAPO for me, it's a challenge, because I don't think it's going to be an easy win. But I think once we've won it, the rewards are going to be incredible. I think for me, the challenge is about how do we change the mindset around pork? How do we take the cultural, or the historical challenges we've got around pork as meat, as red meat actually, and how do we educate the consumer about the benefits of pork and the affordable quality that comes with pork as well? And I think for me that is going to be, I'm always up for a challenge, and I love a challenge, and I see a huge and a massive opportunity for us to educate, to grow this market, and to just give people the opportunity to experience pork in a different way, and to really debunk the myths that people have around pork. Pork gives you tonsillitis, those kind of things. Pork is parasites, and the rest of those kind of stories that often get passed on from generation to generation. So, to coin a phrase, how do we make pork great again?
Absolutely. Look, I must say I'm extremely excited to work with you in the future. I think you've got a lot of value to offer and a lot of experience. And I really, really look forward to spending the next couple of months solving this puzzle with you. So thank you
very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolute pleasure. Cannot wait.
let's do this.
Let's do this.